Who taught yesterday? Taylor Brosky. Did he share the PowerPoint yesterday? By any chance? Do you know?
Sure.
Yeah.
No, it was like a review day. Like so you just went over like on the schedule was like review week one. So
Oh, sweet. Okay. Perfect. All right. Let's see. All right, we're gonna wait for Stu and then we start. Should be back in a second. Two.
I've been reading through this book for the world.
Yeah.
It has all the like answers for everything, right?
Mhm.
Some of them are way more in depth than
What we do.
anything. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, even with the pro rata share and who can accept money and this and that, there are like 5 different examples on that. We usually just keep it quite simple, but it's a good way to like read over it just to get an idea, but they don't really go that much into it.
Even just like a general understanding of each one of them.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, some of them have a lot.
Yeah. It's kind of like frustrating at the point. All right. I don't know what to do it, but we're gonna start now. So it says week 5, day 2. Here we go. That's gonna be day 2. Face check prep week 2 review. So we're reviewing. Derek, can you get that door, please? Thank you. We're gonna review week 2, and we're gonna do it a little bit differently, actually. We're gonna have, like we did it last time, we're gonna divide some of this. Each one's gonna work for about 15 minutes by himself this time. Everybody's gonna get 2 topics, and then we're gonna actually present. We start off with types of airports. That's for you, Dan. Towered airports, non-towered runway incursions. That's all yours.
So
So
again, sorry, types of airports.
towered airports, non-towered. runway incursions. Um, all right, that's good. And then still you're gonna do collision avoidance, airport signs and markings, runway hold position signs, which is part of the markings, right? That's it. And Craig, you're gonna do airport beacon lights, control of airport lighting, which is this one is pretty simple, it's straightforward. And you're gonna explain to us the traffic pattern. All right, Daryl, your last one is gonna be wind direction and the importance of the wind and the runway. You're gonna explain to us 91-103, which I think you did last time for homework anyway. And of your craft. And last but not least, you're gonna do different squawk codes. All right, sweet. Should be like, I don't know, maybe 20 minutes. So 11:30, and then 11:30, everybody gets about 10 minutes. So that brings us up to about 12:15. And then we have 45 minutes to do everything together. Okay? So 20 minutes until 11:30 now. And then we're gonna review together. Hey. All right, let me give you some topics you can prepare for the class. Uh, you can prepare comparison between flying aft versus forward CG. What was your name again? Sorry.
Me, Marshall. I'm not in this class. I just sit in it. I've been gone for 12 days, so
Yeah, it's all good. But you can also do like Google research, whatever. So forward versus aft CG, okay, Marshall? And this time you guys can use the board if you want it. So you're actually gonna be in the front.
Oh, it's my guy.
Das ist halt ausgewechselt. Morgen. All right. Let's get to work. Who wants to volunteer and go first? Anybody? Y'all. Yeah, right on. Sweet.
So. I have text reports. Anyway, incursions, so.
Okay.
So I'm gonna read straight from. Yeah, for some of this.
Okay.
So, two types of airports are towered and non-towered. And then within that, they can be subdivided further. Into civil airports, which are like the ones we're using that are open to the public. And then you have your military, or federal government airports, which. We're not gonna go to unless it's like an emergency or something like that. Cool, big deal if you do. And then private airports, are for restricted, they're not open to the public. So within that, you have your towered and non-towered. So towered, what we have here, Torrance, the big thing here is that the ATC, is providing, separation, I guess. They're responsible overall for like the safety of the sky in their area there. You need to have two-way communication with them to be able to receive and acknowledge instructions and whatnot. And if the tower gives you instructions, you're required to follow unless it's some kind of emergency where you have to deviate from it. Some of the towered airports have hours where they are no longer towered and go to non-towered mode. Those will be listed on the chart supplement. So a non-towered airport is just that. There's no manned tower to it. That's like what we have at Compton. So you're flying into one of those, you are required to announce yourself 10 miles out on the CTAP frequency that everyone in that area should be monitoring, so they're aware that you're coming in. And with that, you just kind of say who you are, where you are, what your intentions are, and your elevation, so people can keep an eye out for you. There's it gets a little more complex. We didn't go into this at all, I don't think, really, but so I'm not really sure how in depth you have to go in it. But there's your CTAF, and there's also like Unicom and Multicom and flight service stations. So the CTAF is like the primary thing you'd be using for that. But then there's a whole chart here, which I can't really show you up in the VAC of that goes in depth if there's like what type of facility is at the airport.
What chapter is that?
It's chapter 14. Third page down, it's the here.
Oh, chapter 14. Big down. You said what page?
Page 3. Figure 14-1, yeah, that one. So it kind of breaks down the requirements for the type of facility they have at each one. Whether or not FSS is there, or if there's Unicom with no tower, etc. And it tells you how to do that, like which frequency you'd use. And the easy part of it is the outbound inbound procedure is the exact same on all of them. It's you're 10 miles out, entering on the downwind, announcing as you're doing that, announcing your base and your final, and when you're leaving the runway, when you're clear the runway. And then same thing for outbound, you're announcing when you're taxiing, where you're going, all that kind of stuff. So everybody has an eye on you. But yeah.
All right.
And then so okay. All right, so runway incursions. This one's pretty short. So a runway incursion is this is from the FAA, any occurrence at an aerodrome involving the incorrect presence of an aircraft, vehicle, or person on the protected area of a surface designated for the landing and takeoff of aircraft. So essentially it's saying like on the runway, if there's incorrect presence of something else there, either a vehicle, aircraft, whatever, like on the runway, but it's not supposed to be there. It's an incursion. And there are levels of incursions. They go from categories A, B, C, and D, with A being the most severe and D being the least. And it kind of breaks down what each one would be. So category D is something where there's no immediate safety consequences, like maybe a person walked on briefly and back off or something like that. When no one was flying in, they just wandered onto the runway or something, that'd be like a class D. Category C, it says an incident characterized by ample time and or distance to avoid a collision. So I think that is like maybe someone's approaching, but they're a couple miles out and someone's like they haven't left the runway or something yet. But like they're taking their sweet time to get off. And then they still clear with enough time where they didn't have to, where the landing craft didn't have to go around or anything like that, but you know, they should have been off quicker. Category B, separation decreases and there's a significant potential for collision, which may result in a time critical corrective or evasive response to avoid collision. So that same scenario, I guess that would be like they're a lot closer and maybe they have to go around because you're still on the runway or something like that. So it's very time critical there. And then category A is a serious incident. Collision was narrowly avoided. So those are the ones we saw videos of where like people, the landing aircraft like lands just over when it's crossing or something like right there. That's the worst class. Right beyond that is an actual accident. So it goes from runway incursions to accidents when there's actually a collision. So that's actually the exact site I was on. If you scroll down, there's like a little colored coded thing with categories. So
Very nice.
yeah, that's it for incursions.
All right. Anybody want to give some feedback?
Thought it was good. I think this is like nitpicky, but I think category B, not like is that the second? No, C is the second least severe, right?
Yeah.
And I don't know the exact one for that. It doesn't probably doesn't mean that much, but today we had one where we're like doing a takeoff and they said like straight out like no, they said like no stops. So they don't want you because someone else was coming in and they knew they were coming in, but they just want us to like pull out, take off right before them.
Oh yeah.
Besides that,
Oh, like when you roll from the whole line, you just immediately start going.
I just
Yeah. Does it?
Yeah, it was just,
I mean, that's not a runway incursion to be
Cool.
fair, right? If you get permission to get on the runway, it's not a runway incursion. The one feedback that I have for you is, in regards of the example that you gave, someone on the runway has to taxi off the runway and the airplane comes in. A plane on the runway that just landed cannot commit a runway incursion if it has been cleared to land. They don't have to move quick off the runway. It's not your responsibility to get off the runway with 50 knots, for example. The runway incursion would have happened if the plane behind him was coming inbound to land, didn't have a clearance, but ended up didn't have a clearance to land, but ended up landing, while the other one is trying to exit. Okay, so
What if it's a non-tower that happens at Compton and you're just, you know, you land too closely behind it?
it's if they're off the runway, it's not a runway incursion. If both two aircrafts are on the runway, it's considered a runway incursion.
and then we had a landing when we came in, like when we were like going regular pace, but they said expedite because someone else was right behind us.
Yeah.
If in like the worst case scenario, would that have been our fault, or would it have been behind us?
They have to send the person behind you around. Yeah. Yeah. So, I mean, you can't disappear if you're already in front of the person there, right? It's up to the controller to maintain spacing between aircrafts. And one of the ways he can maintain it is by increasing your guys' speed, decreasing the other guys' speed. So that's one way. But you're not at any fault if you've been cleared to land and someone is behind you too close. So that's not really your business. You can't, that's why I also tell my students, you can't really worry about who's behind you, right? You can only worry about who's in front of you. All right, good. We take it. Right on. Stu, might as well go in the order now. Feel free. What was the first thing you did?
Collision avoidance.
Okay.
So for collision avoidance, I think it's generally based off of avoiding aircraft that you can see, but there's other things that you can do in order to be aware of other aircraft. So there is cruising altitudes where
Is that working?
from
Is that working on, do I need another one?
I think yeah, that might be okay.
Yeah.
So 0 to 179, you're supposed to be at odd thousands plus 500. And then 359 or it's 180 to 359 is even thousands plus 500. So then if you're on this side, even thousands, on this side, odd thousands. And that's just to make sure that you guys aren't flying on the same level. So it gives 1,000-foot spacing. And then there's right of way, which is the plane to the right of you always has the right of way. But there's also cases where certain aircraft have better or have higher right of way than others. So the first one is aircraft in distress. Second is balloons. Third is gliders. The fourth is aerial refueling and towing. Fifth is airships, and then sixth is everything else. And there's probably a good diagram of that. And then communication is also key. Like in PV practice area, you're always saying who you are, where you are, and what you're doing. And then you can do that in other airspaces too, especially ones with high traffic, to make sure that everyone knows where you are. And then there's also the ADS-B, which is that the G3X where it's like all the little planes flying around?
It's connected to the transponder, yeah.
Okay. So the ADS-B is the automatic dependent surveillance broadcast. And I just wrote that it shows locations, planes in the area, and then the elevation. And then airport markings. So airport markings are pretty extensive. They're usually painted on or they're vertical signs like 29 right or Alpha, Echo, Juliet, all those. And there's also the hold short where it tells you where to stop and where to continue. So in the entire list, they have the blast pad, which is for aircraft going the opposite direction on the other runway. In the case that they need to crash, let's like an emergency landing or an emergency stoppage. Displace threshold, it's for taxi and takeoff, as well as landing in the other direction of the runway. The runway threshold bar indicates the beginning of the runway, and the runway threshold indicates an area that's starting to be like suitable for landing. And then past that, they have the runway number, which just shows what runway you're on. And there's a whole bunch of like runway touchdown zone markings. They're 500 feet apart, but it's like that third one and then those two lines past, that's 500 in between there. And then the center lines are for staying center, just knowing where you are. And then on the edge, there's the white, which are the edge lines. And then I think that's like about it.
Right.
All right.
Right on. Feedback, guys. Anybody got to give at least one feedback? Stu already did it. He just performed. So who wants to say something?
It's good examples.
Yeah.
Like that you added it to the board so we can see it. Give us something to focus.
Very nice. Yeah. One of the things, good examples given, you can be a little bit more detail oriented in regards of, for example, if you talk about collision avoidance, this starts at 3,000, then you can tell them 3,000 at 3,000 is where it starts, 3,500 is the first number. And it would go, for example, 3.5, 5.5, 7.5. On the other side, it would be 4.5, 6.5, and so on. That is one way of explaining this. You had the runway markings. You could have also told me to bring this up, but we brought it up, so there we go. If you talk about, for example, distances, obviously the 500-foot marker to the 1,000-foot marker is 1,000. But if you bring up distances, you can also say the center line by default is supposed to be 120, and this one is supposed to be 80. Nobody really wants to know that. Like, I mean, let me rephrase it. Nobody's going to really ask you what the distances are, but if you're giving distances, might as well, right? What was the other thing you did? You did one more. The airport markings.
Yeah.
Yeah, airport markings. I'm just trying to get you guys used to perform or present or your knowledge to someone, right? Because this is exactly what it's going to be on the check ride. You're going to have to explain something, and you can say, for example, if we go here, 2.5 left, 2.5 right, run, we see this one is one of the very important markings that we want to see. It's the whole chord, right? Like these things. So yeah, overall was good. Can be a little bit more detail oriented especially if you open the door to something, right? If you open the door to something, be detail oriented about it. So right on. Craig, you're next.
Beacon lights, there's 4 major types of beacons. And they operate from dusk till dawn. And they help to identify an airport. Also, they're activated if the ceiling is less than 1,000 feet with visibility of less than 3 statute. Beacons are according to color and the speed of the flash, which will indicate the type of airport. So the first one is a civilian airport. A civilian airport is indicated by a flashing white and green light. And second type of beacon would be a water airport. That's indicated by a flashing white and yellow light. A third would be a heliport, which is a flashing white, yellow, and green light. And the fourth would be a military airport, determined by 2 quick white flashes and a green flash. Do you want me to do Vasi's too?
Up to you. If you want to go there, sure. You might guess.
I have to.
Yeah.
Okay. The Vasi's are the visual approach slope indicator lights. They help to provide a pilot with the appropriate glide path when flying in at night.
Okay.
Okay, and there are 2 colors. It's red and white. And the way I memorized it was if it was red over white, you're all right, meaning you're on the appropriate glide path. If it's red over red, you're dead, you're too low. And if it's white over white, you'll fly all night, meaning you're too high.
Good.
And to control airport lighting, it's mainly concerned with non-towered airports. And a non-towered airport is usually controlled by flight services, in which a pilot may request light services and specific light intensities. However, there's also select non-towered airports where a pilot may control the lighting with the use of the radio. And you have to be on a specific frequency that would be detailed in your AFD or chart supplement. And in order to control it with your radio, you click a specific amount of times. So 7 times for 5 seconds would keep the light at the highest intensity, or very bright. Clicking it 5 times within 5 seconds would be medium intensity, and 3 times within 5 seconds would be the lowest intensity. Good. And the last would be traffic patterns. So a standard traffic pattern are left patterns. Usually you can find all this information in your AFD or chart supplement. However, if it's a non-towered airport, you can also fly over and look for the wind direction by looking at the windsock or the segmented circle or the tetrahedron to determine the wind direction and the traffic pattern. So the 5 legs of the traffic pattern would be the departure leg, a crosswind leg, and a downwind leg, which is also the entry point, midpoint at a 45-degree angle. And then you have the base leg, and then finally the final approach. So
All right,
that's it.
very nice, very good. Dan, give some feedback, please.
Yeah, I think it's good info. I think there are a few topics, that you could, maybe a little more in on, like when it comes to the airfield stuff. Like the landing direction indicator you mentioned, but like not really how it does its job, little things like that, really, but I think, as far as covering, I think you did a good job. Have good, explanations for
More details, yeah.
Yeah, just like, I think the little things. Okay. Yeah. Overall.
All right, I thought it was overall, yeah, it was very good. Was a good amount of knowledge. Yeah, you talked about how the traffic pattern is determined already. If you don't know what to do, you could have maybe talked about you can overfly the airport, like you said, to look out for this little sign.
Right.
If there's no sign, you see it also in your sectional. If you don't see it in your sectional, it's also in the AFD. And how can you see it in the sectional? I show you guys one time. So world of VFR, obviously, if it's torrents like here, and there is a right pattern, they will actually write it. If not, they will always assume you're going to do left pattern, or this it's by default always left pattern unless it is highlighted here. So that's perfect. So since, for example, let's say, yeah, I mean, you guys get the idea. So that's good. I thought it was very good. I thought it was very good.
Felt like I wanted to also touch on maybe the altitude if it wasn't listed,
Yeah,
right? It's
exactly.
supposed to be like, just to fly over, it should be 500 feet above standard pattern, which is 1,000 feet each.
Exactly. I think that's also what Dan meant with like a little bit more
Right.
information in regards of the traffic pattern. Exactly. You want to be at least 500 feet above it when you overfly it, and then we by default it's or the standard is 1,000 feet above, but we want to still make sure that that there's no discrepancy between that and the actual standard. So and therefore you can go, for example, to the AFD, right? And then in the AFD, if you see, for example, Oceano has a specific amount of traffic pattern, happens to be 1,000 exactly above. If it's not 1,000, then it will be saying here TPA, see remarks, right? That's an example. For example, if I go here instead to, let me go to KSNA, because I know for sure it has a different one there. And then if you go here and you want to tell everybody what the difference might be looking like, you would go to the traffic pattern and it says see remarks, and under remarks you would see for 20 left traffic patterns 850. instead of 1,000, right? So that's the difference. Good. I thought it was good. All right, Daryl, last one.
Corrections are closed. The correction pretty much is, when. Plane is always going to drift downwind when the wind hits it. For example, like if you are flying straight and you got wind coming from your left, the plane automatically wants to drift off course. And this happens in any state in the flight, landing, takeoffs, and ship flight. To correct it, it's what we call a crab. You can face the nose of the plane into the wind, so that you can stay on your intended path. For example, this morning, when I was coming in for a landing, the wind was coming in at 260, and I was landing at 200 left. So we faced the ailerons into the wind, and then we use our rudder to control the nose, to make sure we stay on our intended course. And this is just so that you don't kind of just drift off. Like if we're flying in Compton, going to Compton, and the wind is blowing from the left, we eventually are just gonna stray off. And if obviously if there's no wind, then there's no need for correction. And this is, yeah, used for any steady flight. So on takeoff, when you do full power and you know the wind's coming left, you face the ailerons into the wind as well. And then as you hit 55 knots, you slowly start bringing that back pressure and you take off. That's pretty short, but that's pretty much it for correction.
Good.
Squawk codes. Squawk codes are pretty much 4-digit codes set on an aircraft's transponder, mainly used by air traffic control for identification and communications. Pretty much, we have emergency code, which is universal for any aircraft. 7700, which is pretty much if you're in an emergency, you squawk that code, so it lets that ATC know that you are having engine failure or something. 7600 is radio comm failure. So if they're trying to talk to you and you squawk that code, they realize that you have no comms. 7500 is a hijacked aircraft. Usually, I don't know how you get hijacked, but what happens, you squawk that code. And then you have other codes such as like the one we use is 1200 VFR traffic. 4000 is used by military aircrafts. And then if you are in a controlled airspace, they sometimes will give you a specific code, or they'll just tell you squawk VFR. And that's for squawk codes. Then we have NW Brad. Pretty much stands for NOTAMs, weather, known ATC delays, runway lengths, alternates, fuel requirements, and takeoff to landings. NOTAMs is pretty much you want to know if there's any, I guess, like temporary changes or hazards. For example, I think Torrance tomorrow will be closing on your left for like 2 hours. So you at any airport you're going to travel to, you want to check for a NOTAM, just so you know you might not be able to land at that specific airport or whatever the case is. And you could also find that in, port flight when you do your briefing. Weather, obviously you want to know what the weather forecast and reports is by a FAA approved source. You can't just check your weather app on your phone. Good. So, and yeah, so you use an FAA approved source to get your weather. And when you want to know if there's, thunderstorms, high winds, low level wind shear, things like that stuff. Non-ATC delays is pretty much the most common ones would be like icing and thunderstorms. Say you're flying to an airport and there's a thunderstorm nearby. Or icing, I should say, so icing. There might be a delay, so you need to calculate how much fuel. Sometimes they might make you overfly for like 40 minutes. And if you only have enough fuel for 40 minutes, you then used all your fuel because they told you to stand by. So that's why, because the FAA, pretty much your fuel requirement is 30 to 45 minutes extra. But if there's a known ATC delay that might cause you to overfly for a bit, then you just use all your fuel. Runway lengths is pretty much obviously how long the runway is. You want to know how much you have. For a sling doesn't matter too much because we take off in about 395 feet. That's how much we used to take off. But it's always good to know how much runway we got to work with. Alternates are in case of an emergency, you want to know if there's other airports in the area to land at. Or let's just say the airport you're heading to has bad weather. You want to know if there's any airports around that area that you could land at temporarily, not just for an emergency. And then fuel requirements, like I said, the FAA requires 30 to 40 minutes extra. But for slings, the rule is 5 gallons in each tank, pretty much 2 hours per sling. And takeoff and landing distances is you want to know if your takeoff is going to be affected by height, humidity, or heat. So you might have a long runway to work with, but if you have a high humidity and area, it's going to affect your takeoff. And you just want to know if you have enough, pretty much enough runway to take off in that condition. And that is NW Drive.
Sweet. Anybody? So you already gave a feedback?
Yeah.
You already did. Craig, you did one too, right? Dan, so you gave one for me. What was the first thing you did again? Sorry. Was the wind correction, right? Yeah, wind correction was good. You could have used the board like Stu, right? You could have used the board. You could have told me to bring something up, but overall, that's right. If you brought up an example of today's flight, that is a good way of explaining it. In regards of wind correction and flying into the wind, it doesn't necessarily always mean that you put the nose exactly into the wind, right? You don't really fly. If the wind is coming 260, it doesn't mean you're flying a heading of 260. It can be also just like a correction of 10 degrees, depending on how strong the wind is, right? So it's not always the nose into the wind. It's more like a crab putting the wind into consideration. So that was good. You also talked about how to land an aircraft with a crosswind landing. Very good. Just be sure that there's a difference between crabbing into the on final, for example, let's say your 5-mile final, you're going to be crabbing. You're not going to use a rudder, right? But once you get closer on short and final is when you put the rudder. So if your wind is coming from 260 at this given airport here, you're going to kick the right rudder and drop the left aileron, right? So that's good. You drop the right one, you kick the right rudder and you drop the left aileron. So you bring the wing into the wind. You don't want to do it the other way around where you're putting the wing high where the wind is coming from, because if not, it just flips you over, depending on the strength, velocity of the wind. Good. NW crab was very detail oriented. That's good. You can also tell them where they can get all these information, right? It's good to know. I've been asked this twice, I think, to show them. So you want to make sure you can find this website, find the example, especially the one that you talked about, right? Right here. Runway 11 left, 29 right is closed from blah 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 to blah blah. This is the 19th for 2 hours. 29 left is also closed for 2 hours right after this one has been closed. So after they're probably done with one of the jobs, they're gonna work the other one. You talked about AWC, or what you talked about is a official website. Yeah. So you can bring examples like AWC, 4Flight. That's good. Any questions, guys? In regards of that? I thought it was very good. All right, we're getting closer, huh? Closer to. I try to at least do this like once or twice a week where you guys have to present something, because it will come no matter what. Like you guys cannot stay still here for 10 weeks, because the earliest it will happen is going to be face checks, and then you're going to be talking about it. And then you're going to have to explain it. If I ask you a question during a face check, let's say Stu comes to my face check and he tells me, yeah, NW Craft is also you should have mentioned what the regulation is, right? Like the regulation is 91-103. But if you tell me, oh, I want to look at my NOTAMs, where can I find the NOTAMs, right? That might be a follow-up question from someone. Where can I find the runway length of a certain airport? It's in the AFD, right? Unless they don't ask you, but if you have the information you might want to share the information with someone. Is that clear why we do this? I mean, not every class likes to do a presentation, but if we have time like this, I think it's beneficial. All right. That was pretty much week 2. There's very little. We have this kind of wind correction. You can also use this. You see how the difference is, because these are also the wind corrections you will see in the written. I think the written has a couple of examples. If you don't correct where you're gonna end up, 1, 2, 3, 4, or something like that, especially for a rectangular course, I think they have it. Um, who has taken the written so far? I know Dan has. Anybody here? No? All right. Try to get on that, yeah? It's gonna hold you back, believe it or not. If you don't get it done, flying is fun, but if you don't get the ground done, it's gonna hold you back. Because you want to do that face check, and then if you clear the final face check and you don't have the written done, you're not gonna be on that check right list until you finish it. And then after that, maybe it's another one month to wait, right? So get on the list as soon as you can. All right. Uh, we almost did all of it. Here's another wind correction one. So was good. I'll commit to last thing I want to do is these 4 slides. We're going to do them all together. Low volts in regards of a sling. If the aircraft's volts drop, it means the battery is no longer getting charged. This indicates a deeper error as an internal electrical system has most likely faulted. In the case, the pilot should begin to climb and immediately return toward the nearest airport. At some point, the engine may shut down. And they say it's about 30 minutes, but that's best case scenario, okay? So the right side is going to determine the battery voltage. The left side is going to determine your ECU or the rectifier for the ECU, right? But this one will always run unless the battery dies or unless the generator dies. If the generator dies, you're going to use that ECU to use the main battery to power your engine, which is the one disadvantage of a IS, right? Compared to the ULS, the engine is always going to run, like it's not going to turn off. But since this is electrical, you need to have a battery or you need to have some source of power to be able to run that engine. Is that kind of clear? All right. Low or full loss of oil pressure. Oil is vital to the engine. If it stops flowing, the engine will run rough and damage itself to the point of failure. If oil pressure begins to lower during any phase of flight, the pilot should immediately return to the nearest airport. If a complete loss of oil pressure occurs, the pilot should turn towards the nearest airport and begin to climb. At some point, the engine will either shut down by itself or you, the pilot, will turn it off by choice when ready. That is, if the oil pressure is too low. Once the pilot has enough altitude and is above an airport or other landing spot, they should begin a controlled spiral down towards the airport. 2 things that are always overlooked: oil pressure and fuel pressure. If you don't have oil pressure, the engine's not going to run or not going to run for a long time. Second thing, if you don't have fuel pressure, the same problem, right? You're not going to be having a running engine. So you want to keep an eye on this. I don't know, every 5 to 10 minutes, you check the instrument page, right? And when you check it, you make sure everything is in the green. And one of the things you want to look at are the volts, the amps, because the amps tell you if it's being charged, the volts, the fuel pressure, as well as the oil pressure. All right, last thing we're going to do here for right now, lane light. The lane light in flight. Lane light, I think I have not given this presentation. I think maybe Zachary or something. Lane light in flight. If lane lights are, or the lane lights are the ECU's direct way of communicating an error to the pilot. That's how you know something might be off. If a light begins to flash, a minor error has been detected, which means flashing is minor, solid is major. If a single lane light comes on, solid or flashing, the pilot should go to the FADEC information page and take a picture of the error. Once a photo is taken, the pilot should cycle the lane. This is done by turning the lane switch off, waiting a few seconds, then turning it back on. If both lane lights come on, do not cycle either switch and land as soon as possible. Because if you turn one off, you don't know, you might have killed the one that is actually maintaining the engine to run. Both lane lights being on means the pilot doesn't know which lane the plane is running on. Cycling one of the lights can kill the engine. So one more time. If it's one flashing, one is off, you recycle the flashing. If it's both on, no matter flashing or solid, you don't really want to mess around with it. Okay? You don't know which one is going to keep the engine running. If both are solid, also don't touch them. One is solid, you can recycle the solid one. If only one is solid, you can recycle. Okay? I guess this includes like flashing or solid. If both lane lights come on, do not cycle either switch and then as soon as possible. You just want to you don't want to play the risk of actually killing the engine by turning the wrong switch off. Is that clear? Fuel pressure, oil pressure, lane lights, amps, and voltage. In regards of that, we're gonna do. Let's look at this. Since today is all review. Oh, not this one. Where did I put it? Anyway. Oh, there we go. Let's do emergencies real quick. Not quick, but that's 1, 2, there's 2. All right, there it is. We're gonna take a 10-minute break, come back. After the break, everybody is gonna get one emergency. You're gonna use that display thing and walk us through it. I'm gonna give you now already your emergency. What's the name again? Martian?
Yes.
Martian, you're gonna get engine failure during takeoff. Then you're gonna get engine failure during takeoff as well as engine failure immediately after takeoff. It's almost the same. Engine failure during flight. How to do an air start. Okay, Stu. Irregular RPM 335. Craig. Low fuel pressure. Low oil pressure as well. Okay, those two. And the last one is going to be emergency landing without engine power. All right. So you guys can be back at 12. Take a 10-minute break. 12:25, be back. 12:35, we're presenting. Okay?
My flight got today because our brake exploded.
Oh yeah?
The fuel got spread all over the
The
company.
fuel or the brake?
The brake fluid.
Oh, hydraulic brake.
Uh, 63
All right.
Have ever read in the actual manual what to do for that? Check with local fuel content.
I was saying the same thing. Oh, I've already done it. It already simulated the air start. I don't know if actually. Okay.
Oh, and here it just says air start, so it's not even as in depth as the checklist other.
Is that it needs to be checklist like we were.
I know one of the insurance kids just quizzed me on it, but I don't know where that came from.
Let's see.
You're covering irregular engine RPM, right?
Yes. What do you have?
Low fuel pressure, low oil pressure. Which all actually happens to me before. Oh, really?
Yeah, it's gonna have to do the.
What have you got? All good things. Totally think. All right, let's get to work. Pretend like this emergency, your life depends on it.
Yeah, I realized something.
What is that?
For the low fuel pressure,
Yeah.
we don't have to cycle it through. It's like just kind of like turn, for example, my main pump is. We're trying to figure out if this pump might be a little bit weaker. Should I just like cycle it through and just see if the pressure comes back on?
Low fuel pressure.
Hmm.
I mean, should we talk about it right now already? Just follow the checklist.
Okay.
Just follow the checklist for now. I was already wondering, something smelled like food in here. You got a chain of wontons.
Yes.
All right, enjoy.
You're fasting, right?
Yeah, I'm fasting.
Oh, I'm sorry.
No, that's no problem.
I am too.
Oh, you are?
How does that work? What do you do? Just not eat?
Don't eat, don't drink.
For how long?
Sunrise to sunset. 6 a.m. to 7 p.m.
Why?
It's like a religious thing.
To experience the suffering of other people.
Yeah, one of the things is that, yeah. It's kind of like recalibration.
Yeah.
It's a nutshell. No, it's so easy reading.
Cycle through,
If I don't-
cycle through all the
But then you have a big meal, right? at the last night.
Yeah, we go to mosque or we
A good
in Germany, I sleep with my parents. We don't really go to mosque for dinner. But here they do. We try to be super early. Yeah, it's really easy. Like people say,
I feel like it's depends on travel.
I'm up since 5:30 every day.
Yeah.
I
You
go to-
just don't eat.
I don't eat, I don't drink, I fly 8 hours a day.
You do the big every night, big group.
Yeah, we eat together. My
Yeah.
family's not here, so.
Yeah.
Like with the family, it's a big thing actually. But here, since I don't have family here, I go to friends or we have it together. I go to the mosque. We have it at the mosque.
Isn't that unhealthy not to drink all day?
No, it's good. I have so much energy.
I'm sure you don't.
I swear I do. I go run 10K right now.
Really?
No problem.
Yeah, I
Wouldn't finish it.
If I don't drink water.
No, I finished 10K right now.
Yeah.
Everybody put money on the table. If I would bet, I'm taking
You wanna go
it. It's really easy. I've been doing it also for a long time,
Okay.
but it's, I don't know, people think it's hard. It's really
What's that?
fasting.
Oh. Fasting's really good for you.
Yeah.
Sometimes.
I hear the cells, if you have any sick cells or something, they don't feed
They
them.
eat them.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
They eat them up. Then there's not enough nutrients, so the good cells eat the bad cells. And
So if you're sick, you should like not drink.
people who have cancer, actually not my religion, but a
Yeah.
different religion, they don't eat for periods of time
Like,
because then the cell gets eaten by the good cells.
Do you eat ketogenically too?
Not really. Like I watch what I eat, but obviously I don't eat the best. I used to be.
What's your religion?
Mine? I'm Muslim.
Oh, Muslims fast.
Yeah,
Oh, I didn't know
that's
that.
Ramadan. Isn't Hanzala your instructor?
Yeah.
Yeah, he's fasting too.
For how long do you have to fast for?
Sunset to sunrise, 6 a.m. till 7 p.m.
you know, how many weeks or days?
It's like 1 month.
Oh, the whole month you're just gonna eat between before 6 and after 7?
Exactly.
So you just
Okay.
eat like one meal a day at night?
Yeah, I eat very little.
You drink, and then you get into a week, you take a little sip of water.
Water. The first 2 days, okay, we're gonna end with this, but the first 2 days were the hardest. Like the first 2 days, because I like coffee, I
Yeah,
drink a lot of coffee. The first 2 days, I cannot get a headache. It's like the withdrawal that there goes. Other than that, I'm really good.
That's because your body is switching from eating carbs to ketones and stuff, burning the fat in you. That's why you get the headache.
Yeah.
so.
It is possible, it's good.
So for the military, I've been kind of all over, and I was in Bahrain for a while, and they have like giant, I was very giant every night, like
Yeah,
basically like parties, like,
Huge.
massive, just groups of people, like
Yeah.
they're super friendly, and they invite everybody over and have food and stuff. It's pretty cool.
Yeah, it's huge. Where I'm from, Tunisia, it's a big thing. Like Ramadan, not only for the fasting, it's more about also like getting together and sitting, having fun. Yeah. All right, so finish up. We got 5 more minutes and then everybody's gonna present one time. Emergency procedures.
How about eat when I fix like split the stuff yesterday? I'm sorry.
You fasting too, huh?
I'm sure that goes.
It's 6. That's a long time.
I mean, everybody basically fasts for like 8 to 9 hours every day when they're sleeping.
Yeah, that's why it's called breakfast. Right?
Exactly, break fasting. It's pretty easy when you just you skip breakfast for 5 or 6 hours and then you extend that fast. It's really good for your body.
Yeah.
Accidental, they 18 hours.
The what?
I mean, breakfast.
To be honest, the most overrated food for me is breakfast.
Really?
Yeah.
See, if I could
So
only choose
overrated.
one meal, I think it would be breakfast.
What?
Yeah, I
I
would
like
give
this is so overrated.
lunch is the most overrated for me.
I think it's dinner food.
I think breakfast foods fit anytime during the day.
Like I eat a huge breakfast and I could probably be all right. I think that's the meal I need to eat if I like.
That's the one meal I don't eat at all.
Yeah. I know some people say, yeah, but like lunch I could skip out. Like I don't eat lunch anymore now that I came here. Do a lot of sitting now, so I think
It's because you have a carbohydrate addiction, and that's why you like breakfast, because you have to shove your face with some carbohydrates, because you don't want to burn the fat. No,
I
I'm
don't have
serious.
fat.
That's like a
Wait.
scientific reason.
It's
If you have a carbohydrate addiction, when you wake up, you've already been in a fasted state, and you want to get out of it, so you want your carbs, so that's what you eat breakfast for.
either
What do you have for breakfast, like potatoes or?
I just usually eat 2 egg sandwiches, a bagel, and then like
Okay, there you go, a lot of carbs.
Really heavy on
I mean, if you just had eggs, you might be better off.
yeah. I mean I put 4 eggs on
Just don't have any bread or bagel.
eggs on each sandwich.
Try eating just like an egg and an avocado, then you'll be like, you'll feel good.
Wash it down a little bit. Maybe some orange juice.
All right. Here we go.
Yeah, you can do your checklist, but.
Yep.
Seems like a pretty simple one.
Yeah, it's a pretty simple one. First one, we're talking about emergency procedures in regards of an engine failure during takeoff. So you can place. Let's put this as if you actually forgot.
Does the POH doesn't have the new procedure though, because the new procedure is to turn on the ECU battery backup
Yeah,
first.
yeah, true. That's true.
So you should be using the checklist, man.
Yeah, the brand new one?
Yeah, the brand new
Yeah, but it
checklist.
doesn't have the one
It
for.
doesn't have engine failure during takeoff.
Yeah,
Oh,
that's the one on the POH. Huh? It's not all the emergencies on
Oh.
there.
oh,
Engine failure.
Yeah, but that's
Yeah,
not
but not
during
during
takeoff,
takeoff.
oh,
cause that's gonna have an 8,000 or steps that. All
All right, go ahead. So
right,
engine failure, just going off the POH right now.
So it's gonna be takeoff, so you're not gonna be. The POH is simulating, you haven't left the ground yet. So you immediately pull the throttle to idle, apply the brakes, and when aircraft is in control, you turn your master off, your fuel selector off.
No, no, no. First, you turn what off?
Your mag, sorry.
Throttle.
Throttles first.
Throttle idle.
Okay.
brakes
Brake as
apply.
needed.
When the aircraft is under control, then you're gonna do magnetos off, your master's off.
Okay, and magnetos, I'm sure 95% of the time you're not flying that ULS, so you're gonna turn what up? Lane A and lane B, pretty much turning the engine off by turning lane A and lane B off, right? So power to idle, brake as needed, if you can, off the runway, and it's not master off first, it's lane A and lane B off. And then after you do that, then you follow that by the master, because if you kill the master, you just killed what?
Everything.
Yeah, it's the main bus, right? Yeah. All right, go ahead. Finish off.
And then after master's off, turn your fuel selector and then turn both your pumps.
All right, good. So once again, this is directly in regards of pilot discretion. Okay, so pilot, if you give full power, there's a engine failure during takeoff. Obviously, you should know the flow of this one right here, right? Like how you should do this. But if the engine fails on you, it's already off, kind of.
Yeah.
The first thing you want to do probably is like make sure you stay on that runway or you taxi off if you can. You report it if you can, if there's no fire, obviously, and then you can be like, okay, the lane's off, man. It's already off. But the procedure would be power to idle, brakes as needed, lanes, master, and then you continue. Okay. This is like perfect for home practice. You can practice this, and this is exactly what you guys are gonna do in the airline. And you're gonna be all through it. What is this first thing gonna be? It's gonna be power to idle, brakes as needed, then lanes, master, and then everything else. But you kill the master, you're gonna have avionics, but it's gonna run off something else. Okay. Next one up, engine failure immediately after takeoff. That's still yours.
So this would be. Anywhere between pattern altitude. So you're gonna do immediate glide speed at 72 knots. You will locate, it's pretty much gonna be like if you were in flight, locate a landing area. You're just gonna do it at a faster pace, way less altitude. Locate a landing area. Basically, figure out how to land there. Use flaps as needed, if needed. And you're gonna shut both your fuel pumps off. Then turn your fuel selector off for touchdown. And then
after you land, pretty much shut the plane down the rest of the way, turn your planes off.
All right, good. You take seat. In regards of engine failure during takeoff, and you have taken off. You took off 299 right. We're talking about sling. Make sure that if you can land on the runway again, you're gonna use the end of that runway. Because you're barely going 60. If you really land again, it's almost like landing on the runway again, and you know you only need about 500 feet. Have you ever been to the end of the runway by during a landing? You've never been to Bravo, right? So you have a lot of runway really. And it's maybe helpful to determine a point as you take off to the left or right where you know, okay, at this point, I'm not gonna go down anymore. If you take off and you see you're passing the tower now, maybe it's a good time to not pitch down for the runway again.
Are they gonna quiz us on these emergency during check ride?
They can quiz you on any of this.
Oh, they can.
Yeah,
Okay.
the thing is, this is all fair game, but they always quiz you on the same one. They always quiz you on engine failure in the air and engine fire, and the last one is maybe electric. That's the one. But they can ask you, what would you do during takeoff and the engine turned on? How the idle brakes is needed. That's the first thing. That's a pilot briefing anyway. What happens during takeoff? How the idle brake is needed off the runway lanes, master. Talk to someone.
So during the cabin smoke or the electrical fire, in like a check ride, would I actually turn off the master or is it?
You simulate it.
Okay, so I
Yeah,
just
you simulate it. Yeah.
I would turn off the master and
Yeah, turn anything electrical, you pretty much turn everything off. Like the only thing you don't turn off are these ones. So these ones are gonna keep your engine running, right? So if you turn all of these off, this is all electrical.
yeah.
So you turn EFISs off, you turn avionics, and you turn all the lights off, and then master. You turn it off too.
And then I just.
But then you
simulate
can't
it.
talk to anyone. You always have to be aware that if you actually kill the avionics switch, you cannot talk to anyone. Right? That's why when you start the plane, you cannot hear ADAS until you flip this one on.
Yeah.
But you can simulate. You can tell them, oh, I have electrical fire. Do I know where it's coming from? For example, electrical fire, I can see it on the wingtip. Then you can probably just turn these ones off. You identified where the electrical fire is coming from. If you cannot identify where the electrical fire, you have to turn all of these off. And then you can that's about with it. Yes. A lot of things are pilot's discretion, but some things you cannot really there's no way of you telling me, yeah, I'm gonna keep my fuel selector on during the fire. Yeah. Yes. All right, next one, Dan.
Engine failure during flight. So. Alright, so engine failure during flight, the very first thing you're doing is pitching for airspeed, best flight speed is 72. So pitching for that, looking for the best place to land nearby, and then you're gonna do the air start checklist. So the order it goes here is different than the flow that I was taught. So can I just do the flow or this?
Let's do this one first, and then you can tell us about yours. The reasoning behind it, maybe.
So, so you're doing ECU backup on, both your fuel pumps are on, they should, at least one of them should be on anyway. Both on, changing the fuel tank selector, in case that was part of the issue. Putting the throttle to the middle. And then verifying masters on, A and B are on, then you're gonna try to crank it for, it says like 10 seconds of the checklist, but try to start it up and see if it goes. If it does, then you continue with caution, try to land as soon as practicable. If it doesn't start up, then you're just gonna use your best place to land and lie down for it. And then also on that checklist, there's activating your ELT and either contacting ATC or 1.5 So the flow though that I was taught from Hans actually was to remember it easier. It's like just like bottom to top and across. So it's like throttle to the middle, then go up to the fuel selector, switching it, then going up to these, putting on your EBIS backup, making sure both fuel tanks are on, and then crossing over.
ECU backup, right?
Yes, ECU
Okay,
backup. Then crossing across into lanes and trying. And it's just easier to remember, like, go like this.
Yeah.
All right, good.
The top 3 red switches. But
Literally just turn everything on.
Yeah.
At that point, just lanes on, ECU backup on, everything is on. Make sure everything is on. All right, in regards of that too, since we are now in the air, there's a mnemonic that you can follow an abbreviation, ABCDE. First one is airspeed. That's number 1. Maybe the first thing is take a deep breath. Like everybody starts stressing so much. It's really about just take a deep breath. Like you train for this, unless you're obviously 20 feet off the ground, then good luck. But if you're at 4,000 feet, just take a deep breath, look around you, and be aware in what situation you're in. Airspeed 72, right? Number B or Bravo is going to be best place to land. And hopefully you have already like been scanning the entire flight for best places to land. Right? You should not be the engine is all where should I go? As you travel through space or through the air, you should be looking for places that you could potentially use as the best place to land. And a way of doing that is going to the first page on the map page and seeing your glide ratio, right? If you can see your glide ratio, you can already make the best decision as soon as that engine turns off. C is checklist, which should come out of your memory, but you make sure you always forget something. Till this day, I don't want to say 50% of us, but I can tell you on the first checklist where it says trim to neutral, 50% of the students that I have, they skip trim to neutral, right? Or off the runway, transponder is set. Like a lot of people, they keep the squawk code all the way until they have the plane the next morning. And checklist. D, declare.
What's
Or,
the big deal if you forget to turn off your squawk code? Because your plane's off anyway, it's not squawking anything.
yeah, but the next person who turns it on, now you have 4703, for example.
Yeah. So you might show up as a ping on the ATC
Exactly.
radar, but
Yeah, exactly.
that's it.
Yeah. I mean, it's, that's the proper way of doing things.
Because I forgot to change to 1200 on my solo when they asked me to,
Yeah.
but I was right here knocking on the doorstep of,
Yeah, I mean, it's not a big thing.
Yeah.
Worst case scenario, let's say you share the same code as me and I'm the one who's actually designated for that code. They're gonna tell me to change my code.
Yeah, it's like an inconvenience.
Yeah, it's an inconvenience because they might see
Someone
too.
has to say something that they shouldn't have changed.
Good. So D is declare 125.5, 7700, and obviously if you're within a tower or something, it makes more sense to talk to tower than it is to 121.5, right? By the time you explain to him the situation, you could have talked to tower and already requested a runway. Does it make sense? So E is last thing, ELT. You turn that thing on. So let's go back to this one right here. If you declare. You see, can you point to that direct button on the G3X? See the direct button?
This one?
Yeah.
Yep.
If you hold that button for longer than 3 seconds, the plane will turn on autopilot if it's switched on. It will pitch for 72, and if you're close to an airport, it will go to that airport by itself. It will already put the tower frequency on standby, so you gotta just switch it and now talk to tower. If you're not within gliding ratio to an airport, it will tell you. Not within gliding ratio. Determine your own fate. No. Yeah. If it is within gliding ratio to an airport, it will take you to the airport. If you hold that button for longer than 3 seconds.
how come that's not on our checklist?
I don't know.
for ELT.
First time I'm hearing that, all you do is hold that for 3 seconds
Yeah, it takes
That's the
it straight
first time
to.
hearing. For the autopilot?
to get autopilot plus it flies you to an airport.
Yeah. And
Can you turn it off after you turned it on?
Yeah, you just cancel.
Oh, wow.
Smart glide. It's called smart glide.
Fancy.
Autopilot.
It also asks you if you want 7,700 on the squad. It doesn't put it for you, but
And it will only turn on if it knows it can make it.
it turns on no matter what. It turns on for 72 knots, but it doesn't turn on for direction if you're not within glide ratio. If you're within glide ratio, it takes you to the airport.
So it's already calculated it for you.
Yeah.
So if you're like 5 miles out and 3,000, you might be like, no, if I can make it.
Yeah, especially with the headwind, it also puts into consideration
Okay, wow.
all the tailwind. Yep.
Will it give you a pink needle to the airport too?
No, I'm not quite sure.
I'm gonna have to practice that with Hans. That's cool.
Yeah. All right, good. Who's next? It's Stu, right?
Yeah.
The regular engine RPM? Is that what you had?
No, I don't know.
Oh, air start, sorry. Okay. Sweet. Go ahead. All right, go ahead.
Looks good. Alright, so like Dan said, you wanna pitch for 7-2 whenever your team goes out. Then once you go through all of his checklist, then you can finally turn on the EC backup. Make sure that main pump aux pump are on, switch fuel throttle. Lanes are on, and then you can finally crank it after that. So the exact order is ECU backup on, fuel pumps both on, fuel selector change unless the second is dry. Throttle, I'm not sure what check movement means. Is that just like if it,
Oh, that actually moves freely, yeah.
like if it's snap
Yeah,
maybe?
exactly. Or yeah, that can be one thing, or something can be blocking your throttle position, thinking that you cannot. For example, you put a binder or something there, and now you
Okay.
cannot go down or up or something.
Okay, and then after you check throttle or check movement with throttle, you can put it in middle position, check masters are on. And then, masters on, lanes are on, and then engage for 10 seconds.
Good.
Then if it doesn't work, then go find something.
Where do you guys keep seeing this 10-second one?
It's on the,
Oh, okay, okay.
Everywhere.
Okay, good, good. Because the POH
yeah,
didn't say.
here it is.
Okay, sweet. Yeah, the reason why this is also a good habit to start, when you start the engine, even on the ground, and you see the propeller starts to spin, don't let go of the key until it's actually fully spinning. Okay, so keep the key, nothing happens really to the prop or the starter relay or anything. So just keep the key until you have the full engine running. So hold it, and that's why they put the 10-second one. Okay. If you let go too early and you think, oh, it's going, but then it stops again, you might be just off because of the key not being twisted for long enough. Okay. Good. I like it.
Does that smart line take you to like the middle of the runway or just take you
Just to the airport, yeah.
so it's not gonna set you up on final or anything?
No, it just takes you to the airport.
So you would wanna take it off at some point to line up to like.
Yeah, you disconnect it. And then
Okay.
you can spiral down, or I don't know. It depends on how much more feet you have, right?
Yeah,
Land on the taxiway or something. I
but it's
don't know.
gonna take you to like the control tower or something, like the center of the runway.
It's like center, yeah.
Okay.
How would you disconnect it?
You just click any button on the trim, for example, disconnect the autopilot like we always do. Cancel smart glide. It says also cancel smart glide. You can click on that. Just try it out with your instructor. Yeah, it's actually really helpful. Daryl, what's yours?
Emergency landing without.
Okay, good.
Sorry, same thing, so you were coming in, landing without engine power, once you're 72 knots, and then you trim for your best glide speed, which is 72. You locate your best landing spot, so like, let's say, I guess, if we're on PV practice, Trump golf course would be our best landing spot. Then we also try the engine air start, so same, middle throttle, the selector, check these three if they're on, boom, master engage. And if your engine starts, then you can fly to your nearest airport, then you wouldn't have to squawk 7700. Now, if your engine Fail to start, that's when you turn off your fuel pumps, both of them. And then your fuel selector would be off, throttle is closed. And then you flaps full prior to your touchdown, and then communication if time permits, so we'll have that move. Spot it. Contact power, if not, 121.5. And then passenger, if you have any, do a little briefing with them. I think my instructor, he told me, let them know that engine's out, where the fire extinguisher's at, when we do land, to exit the back of the plane. And then just give them a quick briefing immediately before touchdown. And ignitions, lanes, both off. And then your bus there, so. Then you just go ahead and then.
Sweet. I like it. He even gave you guys the passenger briefing. It is the same as 2 minutes. I'm done in 2 minutes. Yeah. Thank you. It is the same as the restart that we already saw earlier, right? In regards of that A, B, C, D, E, right? Just follow your A, B, C, D, E. Make sure you've switched the fuel selector. Make sure you have the throttle position, the middle position. All right, Craig, is this yours? Good.
Regular?
Yeah.
Okay, so within a regular RPM, it's mainly problem solving. So you wanna check to make sure that your ignition lanes are on, verify both of them are on. Lane. Okay, and verify your throttle is at 72 knots. Make sure your ECU backup switch is on, so, yep, check. Also check your fuel quantity, how much fuel you got.
All right.
Okay,
Good.
and also check your fuel selector, always choosing for the one that's more full.
Can you give us 2 minutes?
Can I attend it?
No. Can you stay outside?
He wants to attend.
No. Close the door, please. All right, go ahead.
And then, also making sure that both your fuel pumps are.
Do you switch to the fullest fuel tank or the one that's the opposite one that you're on?
So that's the thing. You switch it and try it. Unless you know you already ran dry the other one, right? Then you don't switch to that one. That's the only thing. But you
The
switch it.
POH says the fullest.
Yeah. It also says on, for example, taxi, after you do taxi, switch to the fullest. But what if it's the fullest now? You're still going to switch it no matter what. All right.
Okay, and then from there, you want to check your oils, making sure your pressure and the temperature is in the green. And then the last one would be to check your EGT, which is the exhaust gas temperature,
Good.
making sure that's good. And then land as soon as possible.
Yeah. All right. Very good. What I want to add to this is, if you find some roughness or irregular RPMs, try to go back to the setting that was giving you the least amount of roughness. Okay. It can be a faulty cylinder. It can be many things. It can be so many reasons why it's faulty now, right? Go back to the RPM that gives you the smoothest of all roughness, I guess. That makes sense. Stay within that. You don't have to restart it if the engine is still running, but make the next best decision. And what I mean with that is, obviously you don't want to fly on the roughness for 2 hours. Find an airport, go there, land the plane. All right, we're gonna do yours tomorrow. And the reason why no students like they start coming the last 5 or 10 minutes. They think like they can sit down and just at this point attend, okay? At this point, 5 minutes prior, he can wait outside. He didn't want to hear it for the last 2 hours. He doesn't have to hear it for the last 5. All right. Thank you, guys.
I'm sorry, was it rude?
Oh, no, not at all.
Okay.
No. You came during the break, so everything's good.
Yeah.
But not the last 5 minutes. People
Okay.
start coming in thinking they
I've
can.
already done this. I'm just getting a refresher.
Oh, that's perfect.
You need to even.
What about me?
I'll change it.
No, that's not me.
Sean, here. I got it, you got it, you got it.
Thank you.
Yeah, you got it. See you tomorrow.